welcome to this special edition of Rajya Sabha Television Question Hour, where we bring you important unstart questions asked by the members of the Rajya Sabha and the answers given by the government. I'm Kriti Mishra, and joining me is my colleague Vishal Daya.
Well, thank you, Kriti. And in the next 15 minutes, we'll bring you details of some important questions which have been asked by the members, as my colleague Kriti said. And then later on, in the second half, our colleagues Akhilesh Suman and Arvind Singh will bring you some more questions in Prashn Kal. So, Kriti, let's begin with the first question of the day.
So, the first question that we've picked up is from member R. Lakshmanan, and he has asked this question to Finance Minister, whether government has announced a public sector bank's reform agenda.
Well, the government has answered this in detail, and the answer from the government says that a reforms agenda of public sector banks, that's PSBs, aimed at enhanced access and service excellence and encapsulating a synergistic approach to ensuring prudential and clean lending, better customer service, enhanced credit availability, focus on micro, small and medium enterprises, and better governance has been adopted. Now, reforms in the agenda include making it easier for MSMEs and retail customers to transact, significantly increasing access to banking services, near-home banking services, time-bound refund on unauthorized electronic transactions and mobile ATMs in unreserved districts. The next question is from the member Prabhat Jha, who goes on to ask the Minister of Finance whether there has been a historic increase in the share of Indian economy towards world economy after 2014 and whether the Indian economy is leading the fastest growing economies of the world at present.
Well, good tidings for the Indian economy there, and the government goes on to say that the share of Indian economy increased from 2.6% in 2014 to 3.2% in 2017. The average share of Indian economy in world during 1960 to 2013 was 1.8%. The average growth of Indian economy during 2014-15 to 17-18 was 7.3%, fastest among the major economies in the world. Indian economy is projected to be the fastest growing major economy in 2018-19 and 2019-20. This is borne by GDP growth of 7.6% in the first half of 2018-19. So that's a very bright picture, Vishal.
Well, yes, indeed.
And moving on to the next question, and this one is by member Kumari Shelja, and the question is posed to Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, and she asks about the progress made by the government under the International Solar Alliance till date and the nations that have joined this alliance.
Well, in December 2017, the International Solar Alliance has become the first treaty-based international intergovernmental organization headquartered in India. And the ministry goes on to say that on 11th of February 2018, the Prime Minister of India and the President of France co-hosted the founding conference of the International Solar Alliance in New Delhi. The first assembly of the ISA was held on 3rd of October 2018 in Greater Noida, Uttar Pradesh, and as on 31st October 2018, 71 countries have signed the framework agreement of ISA and 48 countries have verified the same. The Government of India has allotted 5 acres of land to the ISA National Institute of Solar Energy campus in Gurugram and released a sum of approximately 145 crore rupees for creating a corpus fund, building infrastructure and meeting day-to-day recurring expenditure. Let's now move on to the next ministry, that's Health and Family Welfare, and this question comes in from the member Shwet Malik, who goes on to ask the government whether there are any guidelines or protocols for various diagnostic tests conducted in the country, and if so, the details of these guidelines.
Health is a state subject. However, Government of India has enacted the Clinical Establishment Registration and Regulation Act 2010 and notified clinical establishments central government rules in 2012 for registration and regulation of clinical establishments, including diagnostic labs. The Act has been adopted by 11 states and all union territories except Delhi. In the state and union territories where the said Act is in force, the clinical establishments are required to meet the norms such as minimum standards of facilities and services, minimum requirement of personnel, maintenance of records and reports, and displaying of rates at a conspicuous place. The clinical establishments are also required to follow standard treatment guidelines issued by the central or the respective state governments. So the next question is from member Binoy Vishwam, and he has asked this question to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and he asks, how does government ensure that all the money under CSR is utilized by the companies?
While in the answer, the concerned ministry says that as per the filings made by companies up to 30th of June 2018, a total of 19,933 companies have disclosed eligibility for corporate social responsibility for the year 2016-17. Whenever the violation of CSR is detected, the registrar of companies initiates penal action against such non-compliant companies after seeking the sanction of prosecution from the ministry. For the year 2014-15, the prosecution against 284 companies was sanctioned, out of which 33 companies have filed application for compounding. In addition to this, the ministry has established centralized scrutiny and prosecution mechanism in April 2018 for the financial year 2015-16 onwards on pilot basis for enforcement of CSR provisions. Based on scrutiny, preliminary notices have been issued to 5,382 companies for the financial year 2015-16. And in fact, just a short while back, my colleague Kruti Mishra spoke to the member Binoy Vishwam, who asked this question about his views on the answer given by the government. Let's listen.
So Rajya Sabha member Mr. Binoy Vishwam is joining us on the question hour right now. Welcome to Rajya Sabha TV, sir. You've asked a very important question about how does the government ensure that companies utilize the money meant for CSR, and the government has given a very elaborate answer.
No, it's a very vital question that the companies are bound to answer, and the government is also bound to gather the answer. That's why that question was put. I am sorry to say that the government was not so keen to implement in letter and spirit the ideas behind the CSR. The government was compelled to come out with a regulation that the corporates who are amassing huge amount of profits, maybe in the right way or in the wrong way, a small portion of that profits should be kept aside for the cause of the society. But these answers show that the state of affairs is not very fair with the CSR implementations. The question D of my question was like regarding the beneficiaries. Who are the beneficiaries and what they got benefited from CSR? The government's answer was that there is no study as such. It is high time that such a study should be made. 2015-16 is an year where we can see the money unspent is the minimum among the 3 years. On that year, the total CSR amount unspent is 889.91 crores only, whereas it was 2,238.78 crores in 2016-17. So in that year, the government has informed the House that 5,382 companies are given notice based on scrutiny, and that notice is only a preliminary notice for not complying with the legal obligations. The number of the corporate houses is 5,382. The CSR laws, regulations are not being taken seriously by the government.
Thank you so much for joining us on Rajya Sabha Television and sharing your thoughts.
Let's now move on to the next one, and this is to the Ministry of Ayurveda, Yoga and Naturopathy. And the question has been asked by the member Bhubaneswar Kalita, who goes on to ask the government whether the rotational transfer policy has been framed for Ayush doctors from Ministry of Ayush to CGHS and vice versa, and if so, the details of such a policy.
The answer is an affirmative, and the government goes on to say that the rotational transfer policy has been framed for Ayush physicians. As per the RTP or rotational transfer policy, Ayush physicians shall be placed at the disposal of the CGHS for further posting after serving in the ministry for a period of 3 years. Some Ayush physicians have been working in the Ministry of Ayush beyond the laid down period of 3 years. Such physicians have been retained in the ministry due to exigencies of work in public interest. The next question is from member Vikas Mahatme, and he asked Tourism Minister whether there have been any submissions regarding specific regions made by the states for the rural circuit under Swadesh Darshan scheme, and if so, the details thereof.
Well, the ministry concerned has answered this question in detail, and it goes on to say that rural circuit has been identified as one of the 15 thematic circuits for development under Swadesh Darshan scheme. Now, the projects under the scheme are identified for development in consultation with the state governments and the Union Territory Administration and are sanctioned subject to availability of funds, submission of suitable detailed project reports, adherence to scheme guidelines and utilization of funds released earlier. Now, the projects sanctioned under the scheme are under various stages of implementation, and once completed, the same would lead to enhanced tourist experience and increased tourist footfall, which in turn would help to increase revenue from the tourism sector. So, Kati, that's all we have for our viewers in this segment of the Question Hour.
Prashn Kal with our colleagues Arvind Singh and Akhilesh Suman on the other side. Stay tuned to Rajya Sabha Television.